The last time my father stood at a doorway holding a bag, it contained everything I owned. I was 17 years old, only a few months from my 18th birthday. He pushed a black trash bag into my arms, placed $12 on top of it, and said, "You're a disgrace to this family." Then he closed the door while rain soaked through my clothes. Nearly 10 years later, he stood at another doorway. Mine. This time, Richard Adams was not holding money. His right hand gripped the handle of a faded suitcase. My mother stood beside him with 2 overnight bags pressed against her legs. Behind them, my brother Lucas waited near the gate with another suitcase, looking irritated that the door had not already been opened for him. They had arrived the morning after my grandmother's memorial. No telephone call, no request, no apology, only luggage and the calm assumption that I would allow them to move into the house they believed should have belonged to my mother. My father looked past me into the living room. "We're family," he said. "Your mother has a right to be here." For a moment, I saw our old front porch behind him. The rain, the garbage bag. My mother staring at the floor while Lucas remained inside, protected by the lie I had told to save him. I had imagined this moment for years. I thought I would shout. I thought I would list every birthday they missed, and every night I wondered why no one came looking for me. But when the moment arrived, I felt strangely calm. I looked at their suitcases and said, "Every room in this house is already occupied." My mother frowned. "By whom?" "Peace," I said. "Silence, dignity. Everything you left outside with me in the rain." Then I closed the door. But to understand why they came, and why I never opened that door again, you need to know what happened the first time my family decided I no longer belonged. I grew up believing love was something I could earn through good behavior. If I kept my grades high, stayed out of trouble, worked hard, and never demanded too much, perhaps one day my parents would look at me the way they looked at my brother. The Adams family lived in a modest house on a quiet cul-de-sac. Every lawn was trimmed. Every mailbox matched. The neighbors noticed when someone left curtains open too late or parked a car in the wrong direction. My father, Richard Adams, had retired from the police department after more than 2 decades of service. He rarely raised his voice because he had spent his entire adult life learning how to make people obey without shouting. He spoke slowly, directly, and with the certainty of a man who believed his judgment was the same thing as truth. My mother, Mary Ann, lived around his moods. She worried about what the neighbors thought, what women at church whispered, and whether dinner would be ready before my father walked into the kitchen. She called her fear loyalty and her silence patience. Then, there was Lucas. Lucas was 3 years older than me. He had golden hair, an easy smile, and a varsity jacket that continued hanging beside our front door, long after he had stopped attending college. My parents told everyone he was taking time to reconsider his future. The truth was that Lucas had failed several classes, missed too many lectures, and spent more evenings at parties than studying. But in our house, Lucas never failed. Professors misunderstood him. Coaches overlooked him. Employers failed to appreciate him. Girls expected too much from him. Every disappointment in Lucas's life belonged to someone else. When money disappeared from my father's wallet, Lucas said I had taken it. I was 14. My father grounded me for 2 months. I lost my telephone privileges, my weekend shifts, and the money I had saved from babysitting. I was required to repay what had been stolen, even though I had never touched it. Lucas watched me hand over the money. He said nothing. That became the pattern of my childhood. Lucas created the damage. I carried the consequences. He had the bedroom facing the lake behind our subdivision. Mine faced the alley and the garbage collection area. He received new clothes every school year. I wore his old sweatshirts around the house because buying something new for me was considered wasteful. On his birthdays, my mother cooked steak, hung banners, and invited his friends. On my 16th birthday, she forgot until dinner. She found a stale bagel in the pantry, pushed a candle into the center, and told me I should be grateful she had remembered before midnight. Still, I wanted their approval. That was the part I hated admitting later. I was a good student. I worked 2 part-time jobs and saved almost everything I earned. I never missed curfew. I never drank. I never skipped school. I had hidden community college brochures beneath my mattress because my father believed business degrees were useless for girls who would eventually end up answering telephones. I wanted to study marketing. Someday, I hoped to open something of my own. Perhaps a cafe, a bakery, or a small consulting company. I did not know what shape my future would take. I only knew I wanted one that belonged to me. The summer before my final year of high school, that future nearly disappeared. It was a humid Saturday night. I had just returned from a late shift at the diner when I heard the garage door strike the frame. When I stepped outside, Lucas was sitting on the concrete floor with blood running down one side of his face. His car was halfway inside the garage. The passenger door was crushed, one mirror was missing, and a piece of a white mailbox remained wedged beneath the bumper. The smell of alcohol reached me before he spoke. "Claire." His voice was barely more than a whisper. "What happened?" "I hit something." "What did you hit?" "A parked car. Maybe another one behind it." I stared at him. "Were you drinking?" He looked toward the kitchen door. "Keep your voice down." "Was anyone hurt?" "No. The cars were empty." "You left?" I panicked. "We have to tell Dad." Lucas grabbed my wrist. "No." His hand was trembling. "If he finds out I was drinking, I'm finished," he said. "He'll throw me out." The irony of those words would return to me many times. At that moment, all I heard was fear. Lucas had never needed me as a brother before. He had ignored me, blamed me, and allowed our parents to punish me for his actions. But that night, he looked directly into my eyes. "Please help me." "What do you want me to do?" "Say you borrowed the car." I pulled my wrist away. "What?" "Tell them you took it without permission. Say you got nervous and hit the parked cars. I have a license, but I've never driven your car." "They don't know that. I could lose my scholarship applications." "You're still a minor. Dad will pay for the damage. Nothing serious will happen." "What about the owners?" "Dad knows everyone around here. He'll handle it privately." I shook my head. "This is insane." Lucas stepped closer. "I'll tell them the truth later. I promise. I just need time." I should have walked into the kitchen and called my father. I should have forced Lucas to face the damage he had caused. But children who grow up starving for love will sometimes sacrifice themselves for a single chance to feel needed. Lucas had never asked me for anything as a brother. That night, he did. So I agreed. An hour later, I walked into the living room and told my parents I had taken Lucas's car. I said I became nervous, struck a parked vehicle, damaged a mailbox, and drove home. My mother covered her mouth. My father did not ask whether I was injured. He did not ask why I took the car. He did not inspect my hands for cuts or ask me to describe the street. He simply stared at me, as though I had confirmed something he had already decided. "You've embarrassed this family enough," he said. Lucas stood in the hallway behind him. He would not look at me. My father rose from his chair. "Pack your things." At first, I thought I had misunderstood. "What?" "You heard me. I'm 17. You want to behave like an adult. Now you can live like one." I looked at my mother. "Mom?" Her eyes moved from my face to my father's. "Maybe everyone needs some space," she whispered. "For how long?" No one answered. I walked upstairs on unsteady legs. When I entered my bedroom, a black trash bag was already sitting on the bed. It was half full. Several shirts had been folded and placed inside. My journal lay on top, beside the shoes I had bought for graduation. The bag had been prepared before my confession. Perhaps before Lucas came home. That was when fear gave way to something colder. My father had not decided to remove me because of the accident. The accident had merely given him an excuse. I carried the bag downstairs. My father waited beside the open front door. Rain had begun falling heavily. He removed a $20 bill from his wallet, looked at it, then placed it back. Instead, he handed me a crumpled $10 bill and 2 single dollars. "Bus fare." My mother stood several feet behind him. Lucas had disappeared upstairs. My father placed the money on top of the trash bag. "You're a disgrace to this family," he said. "You're on your own now. Learn something from it." I stepped outside. The door closed behind me. For several seconds, I remained beneath the porch light. I expected my mother to open the door again. She did not. I expected Lucas to come running outside and confess. He did not. Eventually, I began walking. Before sunrise, my father contacted the owner of the damaged vehicle. He told the man his teenage daughter had panicked after a minor accident. Because no one had been injured, my father paid for the repairs and the mailbox privately, and the owner agreed not to file a formal report. I did not learn that until years later. At 17, all I knew was that I had $12, a trash bag, and nowhere to go. 2 blocks from the house, I reached a bus shelter. I sat on the metal bench while rain soaked through my shoes. Inside the trash bag, beneath my clothes, I found a folded note written in my father's handwriting. "You are on your own now." The ink was dry. The paper had been folded neatly. It had been written before my confession. Before my father supposedly learned what I had done, I placed the note inside my journal. Something inside me became very still. That night was not simply the moment my family threw me away. It was the moment I realized they had been preparing to do it long before I gave them a reason. I spent my first night away from home sitting upright in the bus shelter. The rain eventually softened, but cold air continued moving through my wet clothes. Each time a car slowed near the curb, I held the trash bag more tightly. I had no telephone. My parents owned the one I used. I had no bank account they could not access. I had a school identification card, $12, and the kind of fear that makes every stranger look dangerous. By morning, the city had moved on without me. People hurried past carrying coffee and gym bags. A woman in a business suit glanced at me, then quickly looked away. A man walking a dog allowed the animal to sniff my shoes before pulling it toward the next corner. My stomach began hurting. Behind a grocery store, I found a paper sack containing half a bagel. I stared at it for several seconds before eating. I told myself it would be the only time. That promise lasted less than a day. That afternoon, I walked into a convenience store where I sometimes bought soda after school. The manager, Pete, recognized me from the diner. "You looking for something?" "Ayob." He studied my damp clothes and the black bag in my hand. "You still in school?" "Yes. Night shift runs from 10 in the evening until 6 in the morning. I'll take it." Pete did not ask why a 17-year-old wanted to work overnight. Perhaps he did not want to know. He showed me how to use the register, count the drawer, mop the floor, and watch the security cameras. He warned me not to argue with anyone who looked dangerous, and never to chase shoplifters into the parking lot. At 6 in the morning, I sat in the stockroom behind packages of paper towels. I had nowhere else to go. For 3 nights, I worked, washed in the store bathroom, and slept sitting against boxes after Pete left. I ate crackers that had passed their expiration date and drank coffee until my hands shook. On the 4th night, I collapsed beside the mop bucket. When I opened my eyes, Pete was kneeling beside me. He held my school identification card between 2 fingers. "There was an emergency number written on the back," he said. I called it. I tried to sit up. Then I saw her. My grandmother June stood beside the register. June Reed was my mother's mother. My father considered her intrusive, so we were rarely allowed to visit. She lived across town in a small bungalow surrounded by lavender, herbs, and white rose bushes. The last time I had seen her, nearly a year earlier, she slipped a card into my hand while my father was starting the car. "Call me if you ever need a place to breathe," she had written. I had forgotten that the card remained inside the plastic sleeve behind my school identification. June looked older than I remembered. Her gray hair was tied at the back of her neck, and mud clung to the gardening shoes on her feet. She did not ask what I had done. She did not demand an explanation. She knelt beside me and pressed her palm against my cheek. "I'm here," she said. "That is enough for tonight." I began crying before I could stop myself. Not quietly. Not politely. Every tear I refused to shed at the bus shelter came out against her shoulder, while Pete stood beside the counter, pretending not to watch. June took me home. Her bungalow had 2 bedrooms, a narrow study, polished wooden floors, and faded wallpaper. The kitchen smelled of rosemary and lemon. She wrapped me in a flannel blanket and placed 2 slices of buttered toast in front of me. I ate so quickly that she made 2 more. Afterward, she poured tea into a chipped cup. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" I shook my head. "All right." She did not ask again that night. The next morning, June showed me the second bedroom. The wallpaper had small yellow flowers, and the bedspread smelled like sunlight. "You may stay as long as you need. Dad will come looking for me." June's expression changed. "Has he called?" I looked toward the silent telephone in the hallway. "No. He knows my number." "Yes." We waited 3 days. No one called. On the 4th day, June contacted the police department and Child Protective Services. My father said I had run away after stealing Lucas's car and causing an accident. He claimed I was rebellious and refused to return home. June asked whether I wanted to correct the story. I was terrified. My father had spent years working in law enforcement. He knew how to sound reasonable. Lucas's car was damaged. I had confessed. I believed that if I told the truth, my father would force me to return and punish me for humiliating him. "I don't want to go back," I said. June spoke with a family law attorney. Because I was only a few months from my 18th birthday, the attorney filed for temporary guardianship. My parents did not oppose the petition. The court granted June temporary guardianship until I reached adulthood, after her attorney demonstrated that I was safe, enrolled in school, employed, and unwilling to return to the Adams house. That hurt more than I expected. My parents could have demanded that I come home. They could have called. They could have pretended to miss me. Instead, my father signed documents through an attorney, and my mother remained silent. June enrolled me in an alternative school program that allowed me to complete my final year while working flexible hours. Pete moved me from the night shift after June threatened to report him for allowing a minor to sleep in his stockroom. He apologized by giving me a small raise. For the first few weeks, I rarely spoke. I swept June's porch, folded towels, washed dishes, and tried to occupy as little space as possible. June noticed. One evening, she found me eating dinner while standing over the kitchen sink. "Why are you standing?" "I'm almost finished. There is a chair. I don't want to make a mess." She pulled the chair away from the table. "Sit." I obeyed. "This house does not charge rent by the crumb," she said. "You are allowed to exist in it." The sentence nearly broke me. June never tried to replace my parents. She did something better. She treated me like a person. She told ridiculous stories about being removed from a church committee after correcting the pastor's financial records. She taught me how to make soup without measuring and how to identify plants by rubbing their leaves between my fingers. In the far corner of the garden stood a white rose bush. Its petals were almost translucent. "That one is called Iceberg," June said. "Strongest rose I have ever planted." She touched one flower gently. "I planted it after your mother left home." "Mom left you?" "For a while. Your father did not like me asking questions." "Why did you keep the rose?" "Because I needed proof that something beautiful could grow after being abandoned." She knelt and pulled a weed from the soil. "People think roots only grow in good ground. They do not. Sometimes being knocked into the mud makes them grow deeper." Inside the house, June kept an old wooden box beneath her bed. I saw it once when I helped her change the sheets. A small brass lock secured the lid. "What is inside?" "Things I should have said sooner." She slid the box farther beneath the bed. I assumed it contained letters from my grandfather or photographs from my mother's childhood. Years later, I would discover how wrong I was. One winter evening, I heard June speaking on the telephone. "She needed support, Marianne," June said. "Not punishment." I stopped in the hallway. My mother's voice was too faint for me to understand. June's expression hardened. "No, Richard does not decide whether she deserves a mother." A long silence followed. Then June asked, "Have you already chosen him?" The call ended. June turned and saw me. Neither of us spoke. That night, I stared at the ceiling until morning. Part of me wanted to ask what my mother had said. Another part already knew. When spring arrived, I completed my final classes and received my diploma. June sat in the front row of the small ceremony and clapped loudly enough for an entire family. My parents did not attend. Lucas sent nothing. Afterward, June took me to a diner and ordered a slice of chocolate cake. To the beginning, she said, raising her coffee cup, I still felt damaged. I still woke from dreams of rain hitting the roof of the bus shelter. But for the first time, I understood that being unwanted in one house did not mean I was unworthy of belonging anywhere. I had not built a future yet, but I had found ground strong enough to begin. The morning after graduation, I walked into the community college on Main Street and applied to study business. When the admissions counselor asked what I planned to do with the degree, I hesitated. I want to build something. What kind of business? I do not know yet. She smiled. That is what school is for. I attended classes in marketing, accounting, small business finance, and digital communication. I worked breakfast shifts at a diner and evenings at a grocery store owned by a woman named Mrs. Keating. I carried textbooks everywhere. I studied on buses, in break rooms, and behind the grocery counter when no customers were waiting. At night, I sat at June's kitchen table while she drank tea and pretended not to notice when I fell asleep over my notes. My first real business idea arrived while Mrs. Keating was complaining about empty aisles. People do not shop locally anymore, she said. They order everything online. I looked around the store. The produce was fresh. The bread came from a bakery nearby. Mrs. Keating knew nearly every customer by name. The problem was not the store. The problem was that people outside the neighborhood did not know it existed. Do you have a business page? I asked. A what? Online. She stared at me as though I had suggested hiring circus performers. That evening, I created a free page for the grocery store. I photographed tomatoes, fresh bread, and the chalkboard listing weekly specials. I wrote short posts about a family-owned market serving the neighborhood for more than 3 decades. I shared the posts in local community groups and contacted a small food blog. Within a week, more customers began entering the store. Mrs. Keating refused to thank me directly. Instead, she placed the store camera in my hands and said, "Take better pictures of the apples." That was enough. Marketing fascinated me because it was not only about convincing people to buy something, it was about helping them notice value that had always been there. I understood that feeling. I began helping other local businesses. A bakery paid me in coffee and pastries to update its listings. A florist gave me a small amount of money to design a holiday advertisement. I taught myself basic graphic design using free programs on June's old laptop. At the diner, I became friends with another waitress named Mia. Mia had short blonde hair, an endless supply of chewing gum, and the ability to insult someone so cheerfully that they thanked her. She called me professor because I studied during every break. One afternoon, she watched me redesign a menu. You know people get paid real money for that? I received 3 muffins. That is not real money. They were excellent muffins. You are frighteningly smart and financially ridiculous. Mia became the first person outside June's house who knew the truth about my family. I did not tell her everything at once. The details emerged slowly. My father's note, the bus shelter, Lucas' accident. When I finished, Mia stared at me. You took the blame for him? I believed he would tell them later. Did he? No. She chewed her gum furiously. If I ever meet your brother, I am backing over his foot. You do not own a car. I will borrow one. By the end of my first year, I started taking small freelance jobs. My first failure came from the florist. She hired me to promote a weekend sale. I created the advertisement, scheduled the posts, and proudly reported that hundreds of people had seen them. Then I learned I had used the wrong date. Customers arrived one weekend too early. The florist had no discounted inventory prepared, and one angry woman accused her of false advertising. I felt sick. My first instinct was to make excuses. The florist had sent several messages. The date had been buried in a long email. I had been tired. Then I remembered my family. Excuses were how Lucas avoided becoming responsible for anything. So I admitted the mistake. I refunded the entire payment, created corrected advertisements, stood in the shop the following weekend, helping customers, and paid for a small printed sign from my own savings. The sale became successful. The florist hired me again several months later. You made a mistake, she said. Then you stayed and fixed it. Most people only do the first part. That lesson shaped everything I built afterward. Responsibility did not mean never failing. It meant refusing to make someone else carry the cost. Near the end of my second year, I created a small consulting business. Because I had not legally changed my name, I called it CR Digital Solutions. The website was simple. I used free templates and stayed awake for several nights repairing links. Beneath the company name, I wrote, "Helping small businesses grow one click at a time." I printed flyers at the library and placed them in laundromats, cafes, and community centers. My first serious client was Mr. Patel, who owned a laundromat near the bus station. He distrusted the internet and believed online reviews were people complaining publicly because they have too much time. I offered to update his business listing, post accurate hours, and create a simple page showing his machines and wash and fold service. "No charge for the first 2 weeks," I said. "Let me prove it works." He agreed, because his daughter had been telling him the same thing for months. 2 weeks later, calls had increased, and several customers mentioned finding the business online. Mr. Patel paid me $150. I walked home with the cash folded inside my coat pocket. It was not a fortune, but it came from an idea that belonged entirely to me. June framed the first invoice and hung it beside the refrigerator. "That is not a diploma," I said. "It is proof." "Of what?" "That you were right to believe in yourself." As my business page grew, I noticed a blank account viewing nearly everything I posted. The profile had no photograph and no recognizable name. At first, I assumed it was a prospective client. Then password reset requests began appearing. The first arrived after I posted about Mr. Patel. The second came after the bakery left a positive review. I changed my password. Several days later, someone attempted to enter my account from an address near the neighborhood where my parents still lived. I showed the notification to Mia. Could it be Lucas? I do not know. Who else from that neighborhood cares enough to watch a laundromat website? Old classmates, neighbors, anyone. I wanted to believe it was random. Admitting Lucas might still be watching me meant admitting I had never fully escaped his need to control the family story. I added more security and continued working. Around the same time, June began asking unusual questions. "What is your full legal name exactly as it appears on your identification?" "You know my name. I know what I call you. Paperwork can be less sentimental." A week later, she asked me to copy my identification and birth certificate. "What for?" "Household records." "What household records?" "Old people enjoy paperwork." I laughed and gave her the copies. Several times that year, a woman in a navy suit visited the house. She and June sat at the kitchen table while I studied. Her name was Margaret Ellis. June said she was an estate attorney, helping put things in order. I assumed she was preparing a will. June was getting older. It seemed responsible, not alarming. I did not ask for details. At the end of my second year, I completed my associate degree. Mrs. Keating gave me a basket of apples. Mr. Patel attended the ceremony wearing a suit and complained about the uncomfortable chairs. Mia cried and denied it. June hugged me outside the auditorium. "You planted roots," she said. "I'm still working on the branches. They will come." That evening, I updated my website with testimonials and a professional photograph Mia had taken. Within an hour, a message arrived from an anonymous account. "Changing the picture does not change what you are." There was no signature, no name. I read it several times. The sentence sounded familiar. It sounded like someone who knew exactly which wound to touch. I deleted it. Then I changed my password again. I told myself whoever was watching would eventually become bored. I was wrong. Some people do not hate you because you failed. They hate you because you survived without their permission. Several months after graduation, my website disappeared. I woke early, made coffee, and opened my laptop to check a client report. Instead of my homepage, I saw a white screen. In the center were the words, "You are not ready for this world." I refreshed the page. Nothing changed. My password no longer worked. The recovery email had been replaced. Client records stored through the account were inaccessible, and every page I had built over 2 years was gone. I sat at June's kitchen table staring at the screen. My chest tightened. The website was not valuable because it was sophisticated. It was valuable because I had created it during lunch breaks, bus rides, and sleepless nights. It was evidence that I had become more than the girl my family discarded. Someone erased it in minutes. I called the hosting company. They confirmed that account information had been changed after someone answered several security questions correctly. My date of birth, the name of my high school, the street where I grew up. Information a stranger would not know. Mia arrived before noon carrying coffee and fury. This was someone from your family. We cannot prove that. Who else knows your childhood street and hates your success? Old classmates, teachers, neighbors. Do your old teachers send messages telling you that you will never change? I closed the laptop. I need to rebuild. You need to report this. With what evidence? Mia had no answer. June came home from the garden and found us surrounded by account records and handwritten notes. After I explained, she became very still. Did you reuse passwords? Yes. Then we begin there. For the next several weeks, the library became my office. I enrolled in free courses about website security, account recovery, backups, and data protection. I learned how to protect client information and document unauthorized access. The more I learned, the angrier I became. Not only at whoever had attacked my work, but at myself for believing effort alone could protect it. A librarian helped me retrieve archived login information from an old notification. The location pointed toward the neighborhood where my parents still lived. The recovery email was mostly hidden. Only the first and final letters were visible. It was not enough to identify anyone. It was enough to confirm the attack had been personal. That evening, June waited in the living room with a yellowed envelope. I should have given this to you earlier, she said. My name was written on the front in my own handwriting. I recognized it immediately. Several months after being thrown out, I had written my mother a letter. I apologized for the accident. I said I missed her. I asked whether I could return after everyone calmed down. I had assumed she never received it. June handed me the envelope. It came back to this address. Inside was my original letter. Across the back, written in blue ink, were 4 words. This door stays closed. My mother had not signed it. She did not need to. I sat on the sofa with the letter in my hands. I thought she did not know where I was. She knew. Did Dad make her write this? June looked tired. Your mother spent many years telling herself she had no choice. That is not an answer. No, June said. It is not. I did not cry. The letter hurt differently from the website. The sabotage was cruelty. The letter was confirmation. My mother knew where I was. She knew I wanted to return. She chose silence, because silence allowed her to remain comfortable. That night, an unknown number sent me a message. Change every password. Do not use your birthday, graduation date, school, or childhood address. I stared at the screen. Who is this? The reply arrived several minutes later. Someone who has seen him guessing them. My hands became cold. Who? A screenshot appeared. It showed part of a conversation between Lucas and another man. Lucas had written, "Her business page is gone. Maybe now she will stop acting better than everyone." The other man replied, "You owe me for helping with the login." The screenshot contained enough of Lucas's profile to recognize him. Before I could ask another question, the sender stopped responding. I showed the image to Mia and June. Who sent it? Mia asked. I do not know. June studied the screen. Someone close enough to Lucas to see his messages. I thought of Alyssa, the woman he had recently married. I had seen photographs online. In each one, she stood slightly behind him. I did not contact her. If she sent the warning, she had done it secretly for a reason. The screenshot was not enough for a criminal case. It did not prove who physically entered the account, and the hosting records were limited. I could have spent months fighting for an uncertain result. Instead, I made a decision. Lucas wanted me to stop. I would rebuild better. I created new accounts, purchased secure hosting, and stored backups in several locations. Mia helped contact clients and explain the delay. Mr. Patel told me that if anyone questioned my work, he would personally explain the internet to them. Within 6 weeks, the new website was online. This time, I did not use Adams in the business name. I called it Reed Digital Solutions. June saw the name and smiled. You chose strong roots. I have not legally changed anything. Not yet. The next morning, I researched the process. I filed a petition with the county court, paid the required fee, completed the background forms, and attended a short hearing several weeks later. The judge asked why I wanted to change my name. I considered giving a simple answer. Instead, I told the truth. I want a name connected to the person who gave me a home. The judge approved the petition. When the court order arrived, I held the envelope for several minutes before opening it. Claire Adams no longer existed on paper. I was Claire Reed. I spent the following month updating my identification, bank accounts, college records, tax information, and business registration. Each signature felt like an act of reclamation. The sabotage had been intended to erase me. Instead, it forced me to rebuild under the name I would carry for the rest of my life. Lucas tried to close another door. He did not realize I had stopped asking permission to build my own. Reed Digital Solutions grew slowly enough to teach me patience and quickly enough to frighten me. My first clients introduced me to other business owners. The bakery recommended me to a restaurant. Mr. Patel introduced me to his accountant, who sent me to several shops struggling to attract customers. I worked from June's dining room until papers covered half the table. She never complained. Instead, she placed a small wooden sign beside my laptop. Reed and Company. Company? I asked. There is only me. You will have employees someday. I can barely afford myself. Roots first, she said. Branches later. My first employee was an intern from the community college. My second joined the following year. Mia eventually left the diner and began handling client communication. You finally hired the company, she said. What company? The And Company. Over the next 3 years, Reed & Company grew from a dining room operation into a small agency with a real office near the library. We helped restaurants recover after difficult seasons. We created online systems for older business owners who had never used digital tools. We held free workshops on email security, local advertising, and customer communication. Mrs. Keating attended one workshop and spent most of the afternoon correcting me. Afterward, she hired us for a holiday campaign. By the time we employed 6 people, nearly 10 years had passed since the night my father left me in the rain. My life was not glamorous, but it was full. I continued living with June in the bungalow. As her knees worsened, I repaired the porch, replaced the water heater, and paid most household expenses. She refused to call it rent. This is our home, she said. The word "our" settled somewhere deep inside me. The garden changed with the seasons. White roses returned each spring. Lavender lined the path. June added herbs. She forgot to label and then blamed me when neither of us could identify them. But I began noticing changes. She tired more easily. Sometimes she stopped halfway across the garden and pressed one hand against her side. When I asked whether she was in pain, she blamed age. Several appointment cards appeared beside the telephone. You have another doctor's appointment? Routine. Do you want me to drive? No. Her answer came too quickly. Margaret Ellis, the estate attorney, continued visiting. One afternoon, she asked me to sign a document confirming my legal name and current address. What is this? Your grandmother is updating her estate plan. I looked at June. She was pouring tea as if the conversation did not involve her. Should I read the whole thing? It only confirms your personal information, Margaret said. I signed. Later, I asked June whether she was leaving me anything. My gardening gloves. I am serious. So am I. Those are excellent gloves. She refused to discuss it further. The local Chamber of Commerce eventually invited me to speak at a community forum about small business recovery. A photographer took several pictures during the event. An organizer asked permission to use one in a public campaign. I agreed without thinking much about it. Several weeks later, Mia sent me a photograph accompanied by far too many exclamation marks. My face was on a billboard above Route 9. I drove there with June and parked across the road. The photograph showed me standing with my arms crossed, wearing a navy blazer. Beneath it were the words, Claire Reed, helping Main Street grow again. I stared at my name. Reed. Not Adams. The name looked permanent against the sky. June sat beside me in the passenger seat. Well? I looked terrified. You look expensive. I was not paid for this. Then you need a better contract. I laughed. For the first time, success did not feel like proof I could show my family. It felt like something I could share with the woman who believed in me before there was evidence. We bought takeout and ate beneath the billboard while cars passed. 2 days later, my mother called. I had not heard her voice in nearly a decade. Claire, she said in a voicemail. Is that really you on Route 9? She sounded amazed. You look so grown. I did not know you were doing so well. There was no apology. No mention of the rain. No question about the years between. Only surprise that I had become visible. An uncle sent a message saying he was proud. He had never contacted me after I disappeared. A cousin sent a heart. Then Lucas texted a photograph of the billboard with a single word. Impressive. My father called last. Your mother says you have made something of yourself, his voicemail said. That is good. We should talk. Made something of yourself. As though I had finally completed an assignment he gave me. I did not answer. At dinner, June watched me place the telephone face down. They have seen you, she said. They noticed a billboard. Some people only recognize value after someone else puts it in large letters. The messages continued. My mother said she missed me. She said my father had changed. She told me Lucas was married and Alyssa was expecting a child. In every message, she spoke about the present as though the past were an inconvenient room we could avoid entering. Then, the questions began. Was I still living with June? How large was the house? Was the back bedroom still mine? Had June considered selling? I wrote one sentence in my journal. Visibility is not an invitation. One afternoon, a silver car slowed outside the house. It remained near the gate for several seconds, then drove away before I could identify the driver. That evening, another message arrived from the unknown number. I am sorry. I should have told you sooner. I replied immediately. Alyssa? No answer came. Several days later, my mother appeared at the gate carrying banana bread. She stood beneath the white roses and looked at the house as though she were measuring it. For the first time since the billboard appeared, I understood that my family had not returned because they were proud. They had returned because something in their own lives was beginning to collapse. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair had more gray. The lines around her mouth were deeper. She wore a pale cardigan and held the banana bread in both hands like a peace offering. Hi, honey. I remained behind the screen door. Why are you here? Her smile trembled. I thought we could talk. You had nearly 10 years. I know. Do you? She glanced toward the garden. Your grandmother always kept this place beautifully. She still does. Is she home? Resting. My mother looked past me into the hallway. June's hat hung beside the door. Lavender dried above the kitchen window. Afternoon light moved across the wooden floor. My mother's gaze lingered on everything. I made banana bread, she said. The recipe you liked when you were young. I remember. It had been the only thing she cooked for me when I had pneumonia as a child. For one dangerous second, an old memory returned. A blanket. A warm plate. My mother sitting beside my bed when I was 8 years old. Then I remembered the letter. This door stays closed. I did not open the screen. My mother lowered the container. Lucas is having a difficult time. Then Lucas should solve it. He lost his job. I am sorry to hear that. Alyssa is pregnant. They have fallen behind on rent. I waited. My mother looked toward the back of the house. Your grandmother still has the second bedroom? There it was. Not an apology. A room. This is not a boarding house. I am not asking for anything today. Then why ask about the bedroom? She twisted the edge of the container. I thought perhaps, if things became worse, family could help family. I almost laughed. Instead, I opened the screen far enough to step onto the porch and closed it behind me. The last time I needed family, I slept at a bus shelter. Her eyes filled with tears. Your father was angry. You helped pack the bag. She froze. I had never known for certain until that moment. The shock on her face answered the question. You did. It was complicated. No. Folding clothes is simple. Claire, you packed my things before I confessed. She looked away. The truth settled between us. My father had intended to remove me before the accident. Lucas's lie merely provided a convenient justification. Why? I asked. My mother pressed the bread against her chest. Your father believed you were becoming disrespectful. I worked 2 jobs. I returned home before curfew. You challenged him. I asked to apply to college. He thought you were trying to embarrass Lucas. How? You were doing well. Lucas was struggling. Your father believed you enjoyed making the difference obvious. For several seconds, I could not speak. My success at 17 had been treated as an attack against my brother. The bag had been waiting because my family wanted the easier child to become smaller. My mother took 1 step toward me. Richard threatened me, she whispered. But he did not fold your clothes. I did. I looked at her. She continued, her voice shaking. I kept telling myself I had no choice because that was easier than admitting I chose myself. It was the most honest thing she had ever said to me. I was afraid he would leave, she said. So was I. He controlled everything, and you allowed him to control what happened to me. Yes. The word came out quietly. No excuse followed. I should have stopped him. Yes. I should have called. Yes. I should have come for you. Yes. She began crying. Once, her tears would have made me comfort her. Now I understood that regret did not automatically become accountability. I am sorry, she said. It was the first real apology she had offered. But it had arrived beside questions about a bedroom. Are you sorry I was hurt? I asked. Or sorry I am the one with something you need? Her lips parted. No answer came. I took the container from her hands and placed it on the porch railing. You should go. Claire, please. We could start again. Starting again requires telling the truth about where the first story ended. She walked down the path without taking the bread. After she left, I found June sitting at the kitchen table. You heard? Old houses have thin walls. Did you know she packed the bag? June's face tightened. I suspected. Why did you not tell me? Suspicion is not the same as truth. And you had already spent years carrying things no child should have been given. I sat across from her. My mother said Dad thought my success embarrassed Lucas. June nodded slowly. Your father believed love was limited. If one child received praise, he thought the other lost something. He chose Lucas. So did Mariana. June stood and went to the bookcase. She removed a worn journal and placed it in front of me. I think you are ready. The journal contained gardening notes, recipes, and dates. One entry had a pressed daisy between the pages. The date was the same summer night I had been expelled from home. Marianne called. Richard says Claire must leave. He claims she is turning against the family and making Lucas appear weak. I told Marianne that her daughter needs protection, not punishment. Richard threatened to leave if she defended Claire. I asked whether she had already made her choice. She ended the call. I read the entry twice. My mother knew before the accident. The confession did not cause my removal. It simply allowed my parents to pretend the decision was justified. What else is in this journal? Pieces. Of what? The truth your family kept scattering. I closed the book. For years, relatives believed I ran away after becoming rebellious. My father's version filled the silence because I never challenged it. I used to think silence was strength. Now I understood silence could become shelter for a lie. Before I decided what to do, Alyssa contacted me. This time, she used her real number. Can we meet somewhere Lucas will not find us? We met the next evening, at a park beside the river. Alyssa was heavily pregnant. She wore a loose coat and kept checking the parking lot. I sent the screenshots, she said. Why? Because I watched him destroy your website. The bluntness of her answer startled me. Alyssa looked down at her hands. Lucas told me you were unstable. He said you stole his car, attacked your mother, and disappeared. He said your grandmother took you in because the rest of the family was afraid of you. Did you believe him? At first. She looked ashamed. Then I heard him bragging. About what? The accident, the website, all of it. Alyssa removed a flash drive from her pocket. I saved everything I could. What is on it? Messages, emails, a recording. She placed it in my palm. He did not merely let you take the blame. After your father threw you out, Lucas told a friend it solved two problems. The accident disappeared, and so did you. I closed my fingers around the drive. Why are you giving me this now? She pressed one hand against her stomach. Because I am beginning to understand what happens to women who protect Lucas from consequences. A car entered the parking lot. Alyssa flinched. I was the one in the silver car, she said. I came to your house, but I was too frightened to get out. Are you safe? She hesitated. No. Then she walked away. I sat alone beside the river, holding the evidence that could destroy my family's version of the past. But exposing Lucas was no longer only about me. Another woman was standing where I once stood frightened, isolated, and being taught that protecting him was the same thing as loving him. This time, I would not remain silent. I opened the flash drive at the office with Mia beside me. The first folder contained screenshots from Lucas's old messages. One had been sent the morning after I was thrown out. I cannot believe she took the blame. Dad threw her out. Problem solved. Another message came from the man who helped access my website. You said she would not report it. Lucas replied. She never fights back. That is why everyone believes me. The final file contained an audio recording. Lucas's voice filled the office. She always wanted to look better than me. Now she gets to play the abandoned girl with her business. I just reminded her who she is. Mia paused the recording. I am going to prison. For what? For what I am thinking about doing to your brother. I almost smiled. Then, the recording continued. Alyssa asked, what if she tells the truth about the accident? Lucas laughed. Who would believe her? Dad told everyone she ran away. The evidence did not make me feel triumphant. It made me tired. For nearly 10 years, I questioned whether I remembered things correctly, whether I somehow caused my father's hatred, whether Lucas's betrayal had been panic rather than deliberate cruelty. Now I knew. He understood exactly what he was doing. I wrote an email to my relatives. I did not insult anyone. I did not exaggerate. I described the accident, the prepared trash bag, the $12, the bus shelter, and the years of silence. I attached copies of the messages and a short portion of the recording. I included my father's note and my mother's response to the letter I had sent. At the end, I wrote, I am not sending this to request sympathy or reconciliation. I am sending it because silence allowed a false story to become family history. I will not carry that lie any longer. Then I pressed send. Replies arrived within an hour. Aunt Denise wrote first. Richard told us you ran away with an older boy. I am so sorry. Uncle Gerald said my father claimed I had become involved with drugs. A cousin had been told I attacked my mother. Every version was different. In each one, my family transformed me into someone dangerous enough to justify abandoning. No one defended Lucas after hearing the recording. Some relatives apologized. Others were more concerned about the embarrassment of the truth becoming public than the pain I had lived through. My father sent a single message. You have no right to destroy this family. I replied, I told the truth about what destroyed it. Lucas called repeatedly. I blocked his number. Alyssa left him that night. She had already packed important documents and placed money with her sister. After hearing Lucas admit what he had done to me, she understood that waiting for him to change was another form of surrender. When he tried to take her telephone and block the door, she called the police. Her sister arrived with 2 friends. By morning, Alyssa was gone. She sent me a message. I am out. I read it several times. Then I replied, you did the right thing. Alyssa stayed temporarily with her sister before moving into housing connected to a women's support organization. Reed and Company already volunteered with the same organization, teaching employment and digital skills workshops. I helped Alyssa apply for an entry-level administrative position with one of our partner businesses. She did not ask to become my friend. I did not ask her to apologize for believing Lucas. We were two women who finally stopped protecting the same man. That was enough. Several days later, Lucas appeared beside my car outside a cafe. He wore the same varsity jacket from high school. His face was pale. His eyes were red. He smelled of alcohol despite the early hour. "You happy now?" he asked. I stopped several feet away. "Move away from my car. Alyssa left because of you. Alyssa left because of you. You sent private messages to the whole family. I sent evidence. You always wanted to ruin me." I looked at the man I once tried to save. At 17, I mistook his fear for vulnerability. I believed helping him would make me his sister. Now he stood before me, blaming me for the consequences of his own words. "You lied about the accident. You survived. You destroyed my website. It was a stupid page. You allowed Dad to throw me out. You wanted independence." His excuses arrived so quickly that I realized he had rehearsed them for years. "You never believed I would become anything," I said. He laughed bitterly. "You think a billboard makes you special?" "No." I stepped closer. "What makes me different from you is that I stopped expecting other people to carry the cost of my decisions." His expression changed. For the first time, Lucas had no audience to persuade. No father to protect him. No mother to soften the truth. "You lied," I said. "I survived. Then I built a life you could not erase." I unlocked my car. "You are going to regret this," he muttered. I looked back. "The only thing I regret is believing you when you called me your sister." Then I drove away. For several weeks, life became quiet. Then June collapsed in the hallway. I found her beside the table with one hand pressed against her abdomen. At the hospital, scans revealed advanced cancer. Stage 4. The doctor explained treatment possibilities, but June listened without interrupting and asked only one question. "How much good time would treatment give me?" The doctor answered carefully. "Not much." June chose home hospice. "I have spent enough of my life in rooms where strangers tell me what my body belongs to," she said. "I want my garden," I argued. "Eat bagel." I stayed awake reading about treatments, as though information could create time. June listened patiently. Then she held my hand. "Claire, saving someone is not always the same as keeping them." The words broke something open inside me. For nearly 10 years, June was the one person I believed would remain. I built my life around the safety of her presence. Now I had to imagine the house without her footsteps. During her final weeks, we sat beside the white roses each morning. Mia brought food. Mrs. Keating arrived with apples. Mr. Patel repaired a loose gate and refused payment. June became weaker, but her mind remained clear. Margaret Ellis visited one afternoon with a thick folder. The living trust and property transfer had been completed months earlier, long before the diagnosis. Margaret reviewed the documents with June and confirmed that her final instructions remained unchanged. June had also completed an independent capacity evaluation when she created the trust. She had prepared for resistance. After Margaret left, I sat beside June's bed. "Are you leaving the house to Mom?" June looked almost offended. "Do you think cancer has damaged my judgment?" "Despite everything," I laughed. Then her expression became serious. "When they come for this house, do not confuse their need with love. You think they will come? They have always believed my life was an extension of Marianne's. People who ignore a garden often become interested when they learn the land has value." I looked toward the window. The white roses moved in the breeze. "Promise me something," June said. "Anything. Keep planting." My throat tightened. "Even when the ground feels empty. Even when people tell you nothing good can grow there." "I promise." June died 3 weeks later. I held her hand as morning light spread across the room. Her eyes remained fixed on the garden. Her final breath was quiet. For several minutes, I sat beside her, waiting for the world to react. Nothing moved, except the roses outside the window. The silence was not like the bus shelter. It did not tell me I was unwanted. It told me someone I loved had finished speaking. Now it was my responsibility to carry the truth forward. June's memorial took place in the garden. She had written the instructions years earlier. No large church service. No dramatic speeches. No people who ignored her in life pretending to understand her in death. Mia stood beside me beneath the willow tree. Mrs. Keating brought flowers from the grocery store. Mr. Patel wore the same uncomfortable suit he had worn to my graduation. I read several lines from June's gardening journal. Soil does not ask whether a seed was loved before it arrived. It simply gives the seed a place to become what it was meant to be. Then I placed June's gardening gloves beside the urn containing her ashes. My mother and father appeared at the edge of the garden. They had not been invited. My mother wore black and held a tissue she never used. My father stood beside her, stiff and silent. Lucas was absent. After the other guests left, my mother approached the white roses. "She always loved these," she said. "Yes. I did not know she was sick." She knew who she wanted beside her. My mother lowered her eyes. Did she leave instructions about the house? There it was again. Not grief. Property. She did. My mother glanced toward my father. "We should talk after everything settles." "Everything is settled." My father stepped forward. "Your grandmother made decisions while she was elderly. Those decisions may need review." The memorial flowers were still fresh, and he was already preparing to challenge her wishes. "You should leave," I said. His jaw tightened. "You are still carrying resentment." "I am carrying June's instructions." For the first time in my life, my father looked at me and seemed to understand that his voice had no authority inside this house. He looked away first. My parents left without offering condolences. That evening, after the final guest had gone, Margaret remained behind. She placed the wooden box from beneath June's bed on the kitchen table. "Your grandmother asked me to give this to you after the memorial." My hands trembled as I opened the brass lock, with the key Margaret provided. Inside were journals, letters, and folders labeled by year. June had documented everything. My forgotten birthdays. The money Lucas accused me of stealing. Conversations with my mother. Notes from calls to Child Protective Services. The name of the caseworker she contacted. A consultation with a family law attorney from when I was 15. June had considered requesting guardianship after noticing bruises on my arm and hearing my father threaten me. She did not file because my mother begged her not to destroy the family's reputation. Beside the attorney's letter, June had written, "I believed Marianne when she said she would protect Claire. I should have trusted the fear in that child's face instead." At the bottom of the box was a sealed envelope. To the granddaughter they never saw. Inside, June had written, "Claire, you may believe I saved you the night I found you in that store. The truth is that you saved yourself long before I arrived. You worked when you were exhausted. You told the truth when lies would have been easier. You kept your heart even after people treated kindness like weakness. I am leaving you this house, not because you need a reward, but because you gave it a future. This garden was never meant to belong to the people who walked past it. It belongs to the person who watered it. Keep planting. Love, June." I pressed the letter against my chest. Margaret waited until I could speak. "Is the house part of probate?" I asked. "No." June had placed the bungalow and surrounding property into a revocable living trust. She named me as the successor trustee and sole beneficiary. The trust already held legal title to the house. The property remained outside probate and would pass according to June's written instructions. My mother had no automatic ownership claim. My father could not take control merely because June was related to Marianne. Margaret also showed me the medical and legal documents confirming June was mentally competent when she created the trust months before her final diagnosis. "She anticipated resistance," Margaret said. "She knew them. She also knew you." For the first time since June died, I cried without trying to stop. Not because I owned a house. Because June had protected me, even when she knew she would not remain to see the result. The knock came the next morning. Slow. Deliberate. I opened the door and found my father standing on the porch with a suitcase. My mother stood beside him with 2 overnight bags. Lucas waited near the gate with another suitcase. The scene felt strangely familiar. My father spoke first. "We need to discuss the house." "There is nothing to discuss. Your mother is June's daughter. And she has a moral right to her family home." June disagreed. My mother stepped forward. We received an eviction notice. Lucas lost the apartment after Alyssa left. Your father used part of our savings to help him, and things became complicated. I looked at Lucas. He stared toward the garden. My mother continued. We only need a few months. There are 2 bedrooms, she said quickly. You cannot need both. One was June's. The other is mine. Lucas could sleep in the study. No. Then your father and I could use June's room. No one is taking June's room. My father's expression hardened. Do not be childish. The words might once have reduced me to silence. Now they sounded old. Powerless. You arrived with luggage before asking whether you could stay. We assumed you would do the decent thing. The decent thing? My father stepped closer. We fed you. We raised you. You threw me out with $12. You caused an accident. Lucas caused it. My father glanced toward him. Lucas remained silent. You know that now, I continued. You heard the recording. You read the messages. My father's face reddened. You humiliated us. No. The truth described you. My mother began crying. Claire, please. We have nowhere else. The sentence transported me back to the bus shelter. I had said the same thing without words, while standing in the rain. I have nowhere else. They closed the door. Now they expected my suffering to have made me more useful to them. My mother stepped closer. I know I failed you. Yes, I cannot change what happened. No, but you can choose not to become like us. For a moment, anger moved through me. Then it passed. Setting a boundary did not make me like them. They abandoned a child to protect a lie. I was refusing 3 adults who arrived with entitlement instead of accountability. Those were not the same choices. I looked at the suitcases. The last time my father stood at a door with a bag, it contained everything I owned. My mother closed her eyes. He gave me $12 and told me I was on my own. My father looked away. I survived because June opened this house to me. Not because I was useful. Not because I was successful. She opened it because I needed safety. I stepped fully into the doorway. You are not here because you love me. You are here because you need the house. That is not fair, my mother whispered. Fair would have been 1 telephone call when I was 17. Lucas finally spoke. What are we supposed to do? It was the same question I had asked, without speaking in the rain. No one answered me then. I looked at him. You are adults. Figure it out. My father tightened his grip on the suitcase. This is your final decision? No. He looked surprised. This decision was made nearly 10 years ago when you closed your door. I am only honoring it. My mother stared past me into the living room. The rooms are empty. I shook my head. No, every room is occupied. By whom? Peace, silence, dignity, the memory of the woman who gave me all 3. I placed one hand on the door. This house has no room for people who left me in the rain. Then I closed it. There was no slam, no shouting. Only the quiet sound of wood meeting the frame. Through the window, I watched them carry their luggage down the path. Lucas walked first. My father followed. My mother remained beside the white roses for several seconds. Then she left too. That afternoon, I installed a wooden plaque above the mailbox. The House of June. Beside the original iceberg rose, I planted a new white bush. The label read, Rebirth. As I pressed soil around the roots, I thought about everything my father had called me. A burden. A disgrace. A spare part in a family designed around someone else. June saw something different. She saw a seed. My family tried to bury me. They never imagined I would use the soil. For years, I believed winning would be the day my family regretted losing me. I imagined apologies, tears, and the moment my father admitted he had been wrong. But when that moment arrived, it did not feel like victory. Their regret was tangled with need. Their apologies arrived beside suitcases. Their interest in my life began only after my name appeared on a billboard, and a valuable house stood behind me. Real victory happened much earlier. It happened when I ate my first meal at June's table without apologizing for taking up space. It happened when I earned $150 from my first client. It happened when I admitted my first business mistake and stayed to repair it. It happened when I changed my name, rebuilt my website, and stopped asking people who hurt me to confirm that I had value. Closing the door was not revenge. It was recognition. I recognized that forgiveness does not require access. Compassion does not require surrender. Shared blood does not give someone permanent permission to enter the life you built after surviving them. Sometimes I wonder what might have happened if my mother had arrived with nothing except an honest apology. No questions about bedrooms. No expectation that I would solve Lucas's problems. Perhaps I would have listened. But that was not the choice she made. So I honored the lesson June taught me. I protected the peace I had planted. The house of June still stands on Maplewood Lane. Every spring the white roses return. Reed and Company now employs 6 people, including women rebuilding lives after circumstances they once believed would define them forever. Above my desk hangs my first invoice. Beside it is my father's note. "You are on your own now." I kept it, not because the words still hurt, but because they no longer control the ending. My father believed being on my own would destroy me. Instead, it taught me the difference between isolation and independence. I was never the family's spare. I was never their disgrace. I was the seed. And when they threw me into the mud, I planted roots.